This week on NBA G League Takeover, a trio of 40-point scorers who can't miss. Plus, a closer look at the official call-ups and two-way contracts converted to full NBA deals. And later, an exclusive interview with high flyer Jordan Jackson. All that and more coming up on NBA G League Takeover.
This is NBA G League Takeover, sponsored by Kumho Tire.
Hello, everybody, and welcome inside the den here at Fox 5 Studios for NBA G League Takeover. I'm Mike Davis, joined now by our G League insider, Gianna Hearn. Gianna, great to be with you.
What's up?
Listen, 40-point scores. I don't even think I've ever scored 40 points on a Fisher-Price net hoop in my basement.
Not me.
I mean, when you start getting into 40s, you're playing pretty well. There's three guys, a trio of three players that have dropped 40 points over the past week or so. Let's break this down. So first, we got to talk about Skal Labissiere, a former first-round pick in the NBA with the Stockton Kings. He had his career-high 40 points as he was facing off against the Iowa Wolves. Skal, a guy who's been bouncing around for a lot of years, but he's averaging 16.5 points per game this season for the Stockton Kings, who have the number one record in the G. So, G, tell us a little bit about this. Skal, this is a guy you know pretty well. 40 points for him, a career high. He's been balling this year.
Yeah, my husband actually played with him, so I've got to see a lot of Skal. And, I mean, he's shooting 40 points, but on 69% shooting from the field. He's similar to a Jay Huff kind of guy. You want to see his physicality kind of be a little bit more in the NBA. I think that's what was missing. But don't get me wrong. He's played a ton of games in the NBA. I think I wrote it down here somewhere. But I think for him, the only piece he's missing is, can he be a little bit more physical? His size, I think, is what demands that.
Yeah, he's got a slimmer frame. He's always kind of been a little bit built like that, but he's been able to shoot as a big man as well, so that's been one of his calling cards throughout his professional career. Another guy we got to mention is TJ Warren. Now, this is a guy who's bounced around a lot, another former first-round pick, I believe. This is a guy who's still only 31 years old, but he's just completely crushing it. I mean, look at this stat line. The other night, he had 47 points, 11 boards, 7 three-pointers made for the Westchester Knicks. Over the past 3 games alone, he's been averaging 37.7 points per game. So he's just absolutely on a tear, G.
It's pretty much ridiculous. And when you think about he played 9 seasons in the NBA, and you're like, oh, he's only 31 years old at this point. 385 games played in the NBA.
Right.
You look at him, you're kind of wondering, why are you here? Last season, he played 11 games in the NBA, but he had a year where he didn't play. I think it was the 2021 season, 2022 season. He was out for injury. So since that injury, he's been kind of clawing back, proving himself a little bit that his injury is okay. And we're several years past that now. But just to show you where he's kind of been coming from and why he's not in the NBA. But he's a leaguer. When they talk about like a league, like he's a leaguer for sure. There was one other thing I want to mention. I don't know, guys.
I mean, all year long, he's been averaging 28 points per game. This is a guy, I mean, he could be a difference maker off the bench for a competitive team in the playoffs, 100%. So I'm sure he's going to find his way up into the league at some point this season. But 47 points, 11 boards, 7 three-pointers made. This guy is balling out. But we got to focus on a rookie now because TJ, we know about him. He's been around the league, bouncing around for many, many years. But Judah Mintz from Syracuse, this guy is 21 years old, playing with the Delaware Bluecoats. He exploded the other night for 45 points. And get this, G, 45 points on 78% shooting, but he had 0 turnovers and only attempted 1 three-pointer. So if you're dropping 45 and you're not even hitting 3-point shots, I mean, you're going just crazy, right?
Well, you want to know what I've dubbed him when I've been doing play-by-play?
What?
I call him minty fresh.
Ooh.
Okay, because when he goes in, he's just minty fresh. It just looks so good, so clean, so crisp. Judah Mintz is impressive. Every time I've watched him, I've said, okay, Judah. But he's a rookie, like you mentioned. And so I think for him to be doing this in his rookie season, the G League is a grown man's league. That's what the G stands for, in my opinion.
I like that.
And he's not just coming in here getting 45 points against people who've never played in the NBA or people that don't have experience. You have guys that have played in the G for 4, 6, 10 years. and he's still able to pull these numbers. I think Judah Mintz is going to get his opportunity.
I love a lot about this guy. Delaware Bluecoats, obviously, as we mentioned, with the Syracuse Orange Men. He's been averaging 19.3 points per game all season long. Honestly, this sounds like a Jewish name. I have a rooting interest in this guy, Judah Mintz, Judah and the Maccabees. I mean, listen, I love everything about this guy. I just am fascinated because look, we just talked about TJ Warren. He dropped 47 points, but he hit 7 3-pointers. So when you're scored 45 points, no turnovers, and you only attempt 1 3-point shot, I mean, this guy is an elite scorer. I mean, that's crazy.
He's only 6'1", so he's not super huge, but he's able to battle down low because I've said, like Minty Fresh, he's very crafty. Again, I love Judah Mintz. I love this for him.
It's not the end of the Judah Mintz story. We're going to be hearing a lot more about this guy as he makes his way throughout the G and the association. But now let's get into something else, G. So we got to talk about call-ups and two-way contracts. So there's a slew of news that you're going to be breaking down for us. Tell us where you want to start, but perhaps before we even get into the news, can you just give us and our audience one more time a reminder about the distinction between a 10-day and a two-way deal?
Yeah, so early in January, there can be 10-day call-ups to the NBA from the G League, and that quite simply means you get 10 days to play with an NBA team, and that team can offer you a second 10-day, but they can't offer you a third. They got to decide, do they want to keep you on a standard deal or not? So 10 days, you're making anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 plus. That's a lot for 10 days. And then you have our two-way players, and that's not considered a call-up, but two-way players that are converted into NBA standard deals. But those are things you obviously have to talk about because that's the dream, right? And two-way players are NBA contracts, but to get a standard deal and be in the NBA full-time, that's why everyone's doing this.
Okay, so a lot of these two-way deals, it's like they can be, that's how we see some of these guys playing, in a Tyler Kolek or something with the Knicks. He goes up, plays a few games in the G, or he's even playing a game in the G, and then he's also playing a game in the NBA on the same day. So you're working for that full contract. But give us the highlights on a few people that you want to make sure we know at home regarding some of these big call-ups that just happened.
Well, if you're a former NBA G League Ignite fan, you may know the name Dacian Nix. Dacian Nix got a 10-day. Now, Dacian Nix has bounced all around. He was kind of one of those guys that was getting out of the limelight of Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga playing on that same team, not getting as much shine, but he's really developed over the years, and he's gotten his opportunity a few times in the NBA, two ways. But right now, from RGV, he got a 10-day, and he's going to be with the Sacramento Kings, a team that traded away a point guard and has no point guards.
Wow.
So this is a really good situation for Dacian to prove himself. I'm going to be interested to see if they keep him any longer. This is a guy, like I said, who's been bouncing around, hasn't stuck anywhere. Sacramento could be the place.
Interesting. All right, so some of the ripple effects with the De'Aaron Fox trade to the Spurs. Who else do you have for us?
So a two-way player, Ethan Thompson, he's been grinding it out in the G League for 4 years and now finally gets an NBA contract. Like I said, two-way. He went from the Osceola Magic to being a two-way with the Magic. And what's really cool about him is his dad played in the NBA for the Magic and for the Kings. His brother plays in the G League for the Wisconsin Herd. His dad's a coach at Oregon State. So for him, I think it's really cool to not only get your first NBA contract, but with the team your dad played for.
I love that. All right, so a little bit of a family affair happening in Orlando. And who's the last person you got for us as we're talking about call-ups to the G?
Jalen Noel. He is actually the player of the week for the G League. And it makes sense because he also got a 10-day with the Wizards from being on Capital City Go-Go, their G League team. But he's averaging 25.1 points per game in the G League. And excited for him. There's just been a slew of call-ups, 7 actual call-ups, and then there's been another 5 that have been converted from two ways to standard deals. So that's why we have the G League. You want to help guys propel them, and those are guys doing it. We've had 35 call-ups total in the NBA G League this season so far, and we're not done yet.
Wow, that's a pretty good number. All right, that's why we're here. That's why we do it, so we love to see it. Let's now talk about something that everybody loves. It's NBA All-Star Weekend. There's a lot of great stuff going down in San Francisco. We're going to be breaking down a little bit now some of the details that are happening with the G. So, of course, let's talk dunk contest stuff first here. So we got the Up Next game. We also got the dunk contest going down Saturday, February 15th, 4 p.m. Eastern on Tubi. The reigning dunk champion is a guy named Jordan Jackson. This is the son of Cheryl Swoops of WNBA Hall of Famer, one of the best of all time. Tell us a little bit about Jordan Jackson and the Windy City Bulls, who he's playing with now, because this is the reigning MVP, and he's got a funny story about his name, right?
Yeah, I mean, you hear the name Jordan in his name, and that's not by coincidence. His mother, like you just mentioned, she actually met with Michael Jordan in his playing days and was like, I want to name my son after you. And he said that he would give her approval if he was able to dunk. And she said, I'll make it happen. And then he wins the NBA G League dunk contest. Like, you don't make this stuff up. So I think if you're going to make Michael Jordan proud, this is the way to do it. And after he won last season, or last year, he told me, I was interviewing him, he said, I want to come back. Am I going to be back? I said, I don't have that
you don't
make power.
You don't make that
But
decision.
we hope you're going to be back. And he wore his mom's jersey number. She was sitting courtside watching it. It was a really cool moment. So will he do it back-to-back? I don't know. They have high flyers like Alondas Williams will be there. Logan Johnson will be there. It's gonna be a fun time. I'll be there. Tune in.
We'll see what happens. To be Saturday, February 15th, 4 p.m. Eastern. So we're wishing him the best of luck. Jordan was with the Maine Celtics last year. Now he's with the Windy City Bulls. So there's even a little bit more synergy there with that whole Jordan name. Beyond that, though, let's talk a little bit about up next game. There's going to be some creator GMs that are a part of it, but a little interesting wrinkle that I love, G, which you were telling me about, is that we're going to have two guys from a Chinese street ball league participating.
Yeah, the XBA, two guys just recently announced. The G League's going international. I'll just say that. And there's more synergy than ever with countries around the world loving G League basketball. You have Mexico City, you have Raptors 905, and then we're bringing in these XBA guys. I think there's going to be more to come in future years, but we're integrating more of that. So stay tuned for that. But up next game coming up, Yuki was the #1 fan vote. Yeah. As we're talking about international integration, we're going to talk more about that later in the show, but the fans for Yuki are going wild, and rightly so. He'll be in the up next game if you want to check it out.
Okay, you got to love that NBA All-Star Weekend. Make sure you tune into that. Coming up after a short break, we're going to be talking more about the guy we just got done talking about. Yes, Jordan Jackson. He has an exclusive interview with us coming up after a short break.
This is NBA G League Takeover, sponsored by Kumho Tire.
My name is Jordan Jackson, guard number 22 for the Windy City Bulls, and this is my 4th year professional. I mean, just like everybody else, when I was a kid, my parents put several sports in my life, but ultimately stuck with basketball. Watching my mother grow up and play basketball for multiple years, and then get inducted into the Hall of Fame. You know, things like that are what just keep me going in basketball. So ever since I was a young pup, I've been loving the game of basketball. Yeah, everybody's path is different, you know, and that's one thing that both of my parents have always, you know, put into me, is just that, like, don't focus on anybody else's path. Like, my mom's path was her path. My dad's path was his path, you know, and just staying focused on just becoming better each and every day, staying focused on what I need to do to become better and how I can help my team. So my path is one that is special, but it's special to me for so many reasons. And I keep that very close to me every time I step out on the court to play the game that I love. So, yeah, man, I've had some great talks with my mom about just staying focused on my path. You know, watching her transform the game of basketball the way that she did absolutely lights a fire in me every single time I step on the floor. So it's awesome. Oh, absolutely, all the time. You know, because you kind of get glimpses of what used to be, like all day. You know, you could be watching a game and something could just trigger a thought, and you're just like, man, like, I can't believe that I'm actually here. You know, or like every day you're getting ready for practice, you're putting on a jersey and you see NBA logos, you see G League logos, and you're just like, man, like, I can't believe that this guy that was doing this back then is now here doing this. I would definitely tell myself to not worry about what other people say. Because I feel like we're all capable of doing that, and I definitely was, especially at that age. Just to see where I am now, I would definitely tell myself, don't worry about what people say.
All right, so great stuff there from Jordan Jackson. Of course, we learned all about him and the Jordan name and Cheryl Swoops and all that great stuff. But I'm curious, G, I mean, he's going to be facing off as he's going for a two-peat right now for this NBA G League dunk contest. He's going to be going against Logan Johnson of the OKC Blue, Alondas Williams of the Sioux Falls Skyforce, and of course, John Ukumadu of the Motor City Crew. So who do you think is really going to win this baby? Is Jordan going to be back-to-back champions?
I want to say so, but I don't feel like it's as clear-cut as the NBA slam dunk contest where I'm like, Mac, come on, bring it, three-peat. I think Alondas Williams might bring something. I said this earlier in the show, but there's something I just get. It's not even anything factually based. It's just a feeling. He just has this grit in his personality I think might really show well in the dunk contest if given him the opportunity, which we are. So
I love it. All right, you have a premonition. Guys, coming up after a short break, we're going to be talking about now in the NBA, all the G League guys that are killing it at the next level. That's after a short break.
This is NBA G League Takeover, sponsored by Kumho Tire.
All right, welcome back to NBA G League Takeover. Mike Davis, Gianna Hearn. Gianna, we're going to be talking about the guys who are killing it in the NBA right now, who have some G League experience. Let's start with a guy named Quinten Post, the swishing Dutchman, 7-foot tall dude from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. This is a guy who's really showing out to a pretty good extent right now. Tell us a little bit about Quinten Post. You got to love a guy who's 7 feet tall.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the best young stretch fives out there right now, and that's why he had his two-way with the Santa Cruz Warriors converted to an NBA standard deal with the actual big Warriors. It's been really great to see him play. He had 18 points in 20 minutes in a comeback win for the Warriors over the Bulls. And get this, he's shooting 46% from the three-point line in his last 10 games. He's not only shooting that percentage, but quite a high volume for someone his size, 21 of 46 from that three-point line. Quinten Post, oftentimes now in the NBA segment, we're talking about guys that played maybe several years ago in the G. What I like about today's show is that we're talking about guys that were just in the G and they're already making impact on their teams.
Wow. Yeah, it's not easy to find those 7-foot dudes. And when they can actually shoot the ball, too, it's a special thing. So we're getting a little bit of some international flavor there with Quinten Post. But let's move on to another guy, Jordan Goodwin, 6'5" guard. So this is a guy who's a little bit taller than the average guard. And he's one of the best rebounding guards in the league, I'm hearing.
Yeah, in his NBA experience last season for the Grizz, he had some crazy numbers for rebounds. I think it was a 17 rebound game. But he just got called up to get a two-way with the Lakers, and he had 17 points, 8 rebounds, and was shooting 73% from the field. But get this, he got the two-way the same day he played in his first game with the Lakers, and then got 10 points off the bench. So it's like you sign and then you go play. It was pretty immediate for him. So I think it'll be interesting to see, since all the shakeup in LA, how he fares as a two-way and how much more time he gets with the big team.
Hey, I like that. 10 points in his debut off the bench, off a guy who played for St. Louis University, so shout out to the A10. But great to hear what this young man is doing with the Lakers now. A nice two-way deal. 6'5", Jordan Goodwin. Guys, coming up after a short break, G has her G of the week. You don't want to miss it. We're going to be talking about the heave and a little bit more of that consistent theme we've been talking about here with international flavor. So make sure you stick around.
This is NBA G League Takeover, sponsored by Kumho Tire.
All right, well, it's about that time. G of the week, Gianna Hearn, your big honor. Who is it going to this time?
Elijah Hughes from the Cleveland Charge. He had a 60-footer heave to push the game into overtime. I mean, good for him. The Cleveland Charge did lose by 3 to the Westchester Knicks, but he had 13 points in 3 minutes in that game, plus that heave.
Now tell us about this Heave again. We spoke about this on previous Takeover shows, but this is a new element to the game. What do you think about the Heave so far, and tell our audience about it?
I haven't seen as many heaves as I wanted to see, since if you do a heave at the end of every quarter behind half court, it doesn't count against your individual shooting percentage. So a lot of players, they may not have done it before because they didn't want to mess up, their stats. Now that's not there, so I thought I'd see more. I don't know if it matters as much at the end of the game. At that point, you just want to win, so who cares about your individual stats? But I think this was a really shining moment for the Heave rule, and it was fun.
I like to see it. So congratulations to Elijah Hughes. That is our G of the week. But let's also do a little bit of some international flavor, some family affairs going on in the G. There's a great story about Japan and Keisei Tominaga, a guy who's also going to be playing in the up next game. But tell us a little bit about the family component here and what's going on with that.
Yeah, so obviously Keisei's family is not in America. He's from Japan, so they came all the way from Japan to watch him play, and they got to see him shooting threes, doing what Keisei does. It was just a really feel-good moment for him. And then again, once we're talking about the connection, the basketball world's super connected because obviously Keisei didn't get the idea to play basketball from nowhere. So it's fun to see him there. But this isn't the only Japanese-related thing that happened this week. The South Bay Lakers.
Yeah.
They had a fan that flew from Japan. Now, this isn't a family member. This was a fan that flew from Japan to see Bronny James play. And good thing Bronny was actually down with the South Bay Lakers. He had 28 points in that game, 6 rebounds and 2 assists. But they had a sign saying, "We flew all the way from Japan." I hope Bronny waved.
Oh, my God.
Or signed something.
I hope LeBron James gave him a hug and followed him on Instagram. I mean, you need to travel that far of a distance.
Committed.
That's commitment.
Fandom.
That's a real fan of the G League and the NBA. So a lot of good stuff there, of course. Yuki Kawamura, we got to give a shout out to him. He was the #1 vote getter, right? So having that and Keisei is going to be a cool thing to see. Make sure you guys tune in this weekend. NBA All-Star Game, up next game, as well as the G League dunk contest. We can't wait to see what happens. I think we're rooting for Jordan Jackson, are we?
Yeah, I think so.
And Mac.
I think so.
All right, we're giving you guys the best of luck. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Gianna Hearn, Mike Davis, this is NBA G League Takeover. We'll see you next time here at the Den at Fox 5 Studios.